watching the Vision channel, where Habakkuk 2:2 says, write the vision and make it plain, so they that see it can take it and run with it. This is the channel where faith and vision collide to bring forth a manifestation. You're watching the Vision channel.
Good evening, everyone. You're now tuning in live to Merge Broadcasting from the Vision channel, and I'm Pastor Chandrea Malone. I'm here with Apostle Tyrance Greer, and if you have already read the title, you understand what we're going to be talking about tonight, but I'll reiterate what it is. We'll be talking about the dream room tonight, but we're going to be talking about it from every aspect, and I'm super excited about it because this has been a confrontational topic throughout the course of the body that I've seen. And I've seen a couple things that's been kind of disturbing. And one thing that I take very, very seriously is about how you go about leading sheep and leading those that are unaware as to what's taking place in the body, because it's not something to be taken lightly. It's very serious, especially when it comes to the betterment of people's souls. So I believe tonight you're going to gain clarity, you're going to get wisdom, and we're truly going to understand how, what, and how to go about this dream realm. So without further ado, Apostle, and I thank God for every revelation that he's given you. I thank God for how he teaches you and just the wisdom that he's given you, because he's made you to be the answer, especially with being in this generation and being how everything is taking place, and he's giving you that. So I believe for those that have questions that you will truly receive your answer tonight. So without further ado, what is the dream room and how does it work?
Well, I'm going to try to elaborate with the dream realm. I'm going to give you various definitions tonight on the dream realm. First of all, you have to know what a realm is. You know, you have an earth realm. You have a second heaven realm. You have a heavenly realm. So these realms, so the dream realm, it takes you beyond your consciousness unto your first consciousness. Your first consciousness, which means that's the heavenly realm where God will bring you into a dream realm. So let me explain this through an acronym. I'll give you an acronym for dream, and people should be able to gravitate to it or understand it based on the acronym. The D stands for divine. The R stands for revelation. The E stands for expressed. The A stands for among men. So dream means divine revelation expressed among men. So God will give divine revelations expressed among men through dreams. Yes. So we have to have, and this is, and you get me excited now. I'm getting excited because there's a lot of things that God is going to do even in the end time.
Joel chapter 2 and 28.
Right.
I got you.
He's not just pouring his spirit out upon all flesh. People look for the pouring his spirit out upon all flesh, that your sons and daughters may prophesy. But we forget that it talk about, or it gives an expression, that your young men shall have visions and your old men shall have dreams, because the old men lost dreams. The enemy has captivated this generation to where they're not dreaming anymore. Yes. A lot of people are not dreaming, so it's going to give an expression that the young men is going to have something. They're going to experience something. But the old men will now come back into the dream realm of reality, divine revelation expressed among men. Here, they're coming back into a place, because dreams, people can prohibit people from having dreams from God.
Boy, we can't just run past that. I want you to elaborate on that. How does that work? How can people or deities or entities, how can they stop people from having dreams? And how do you know? Because there's some people that can't dream, or they don't feel like they can dream, not understanding that something's been stolen or something's been blocked. Can you express that?
Well, if you look at it, and I'll explain this, maybe some people will get it. Some people normally purchase what they consider to be almost like a wind chime. But in the wind chime, there's another device called a dream catcher. And I think that people sometimes, they misappropriate or don't have the understanding that why would you call something a dream catcher? Satan set up snares, traps for people. Watch, please hear me. And the dream catchers is assigned to one house. Hear me. But it can catch dreams in a neighborhood. It can catch dreams in a community. It can catch dreams. And many people, they don't know that whatever God desired for them, and I'm saying this out there, and I'm trying my best. They don't know that that specific thing that has been placed in people's yards as they think is decoration or ornaments or some type of family thing that they do, but not realizing that everything that God releases, it'll catch dreams. It'll steal dreams. And the enemy, he waits, and this is another thing that people have to be careful of. You have a dream that you don't remember.
Express that, because that happens more times than when you have a dream, and as soon as you get up, it's like you, and I was expressing this earlier, it seems like whenever you have a dream, you can be very much so aware as to what's taking place. Of course, your physical body is in an unconscious state, but spiritually, you're going to be like alert. Like, I remember that this person was here in the dream, or this what spirit was in that dream. But when you wake up, you do forget. Why does that happen?
And I'll say this. In John chapter 10 and verse 10, he said, the thief cometh. Right? His main objective for you not to remember the dream or the significance about the dream. Most people don't know that the dream is stolen. He's taken whatever you had in that dream that God released. It's taken. So you lose the consciousness of what you had. Now, I'm getting excited. People lose their train of thought and they say, I had a dream, but I can't remember it. The reason you can't remember it is because the thief came. The thief came and the thief stole it. The thief cometh not but to steal, kill, and to destroy. If he can steal your dream, then he can destroy your destiny. And most people, when God communicates with them, he can't communicate them when they're up or they're awake. He has to communicate them when they're asleep. So this is when the enemy creeps in. He understands. Yes. Yes. So most, I know. Yeah. Yeah. So most people don't know that God can sow in your dreams. Most people don't know this is one of the reasons and how God communicates and talk to people, even talk to prophets.
That's true. That's true.
He talked to prophets through dreams. As it is in Numbers chapter 12 with Mary, and he said, don't you know that he said, Moses is not like you. I speak to Moses like I speak face to face. He said, I speak to Moses not like I speak to prophets, because I speak to prophets in dreams. Yes. So when the enemy comes in, according to scriptures, the enemy understands that while you sleep, that he can sow tares among the wheat. Please hear me. So he has to identify first, before you sleep, while you're awake, that you're wheat. Yes. And how he sows, he said, when men slept, the enemy came in and sowed tares among the wheat. The tares' responsibility is to choke out the wheat. So the enemy understands how to plant. He understands how to sow. He understands that he can be a farmer and choke out your wheat. He understands how to sow seeds. And many times when it comes to dreams, there are things that are sown, but he steals or block your mind from the dream of something that he was sown so he can see it in the next season. Once he sow a seed, he don't have to ever come back to you at all. He'll come back because he knows that what he's planted is going to produce the seed. But he had to do it when you slept.
It's so many different things that are going through my mind, so many different questions that I want to ask, so many different things that need to be expressed, because this is not some, again, like mentioned before, it's not something to be taken lightly. It's very much so intense, because oftentimes whenever you have a dream, you might not remember until the harvest comes, and it's like, oh, I knew I seen that, or we call it deja vu, but that's more so of a visionary thing. But it's also tied into that too, because you can be aware. It's been many times that I'll have a dream and then something happens, I'm like, I was there before, like I was in this place before, I seen you somewhere before, because that's the spirit realm. So everything is made known in that realm, even if you're not, even if you're not conscious of it like the day to day. But with that being said, I want to get into, because we're talking about about how the enemy comes in, the enemy sows those tares. Let's go a little bit deeper there, because it's been mentioned that God gives all forms of dreams, nightmares, different things like that. And it's confusion, one, because you'll be looking at God like, why would you set me up for failure? And a lot of times I think about the movie Nightmare on Elm Street. God is not the creator of that movie. He did not come up with that imagination and say this is how the dream room works. But it's literally the enemy. So could you express that to our listening viewers, those that are tuning in right now, about how that works? And can the enemy give dreams as well?
Absolutely. I think the challenge with us, and I'm going to go back just a little bit further to show people that God can actually take things out of a person when they're asleep, and so can Satan, okay? The first time that we ever see the word sleep scripturally is where? In Genesis chapter 3, right? In order for God to take Eve out of Adam, he had to put him in the dream realm. He had to put him to sleep. He put him to sleep in order to take out his help. So if God can put Adam to sleep to take out his help, yes, so the enemy can put you to sleep to destroy your help. Yes, it was the first thing that God would do. Adam was cognitive. Without him being asleep, he could name the animals. But when God got ready to do something with him, it said he put him to sleep and took what was in him out of him. So if God does it, the enemy mimics God, and he can come in and take out of you what God has placed in you. It's wanted that way, and that's what people don't understand, that everything that God wanted to do, and let me tell you something, please hear this. God had to do that because Adam didn't know what was in him. He didn't know when he said, and God called Adam and the woman, he said he called them man. He called both of them Adam because he was in them. She was in him. So God had to take, we talk about the rib. Yes, we talk about the rib, right? And that's great for us to talk about the rib, but God had to take the man, put the man to sleep, take a rib and fashion. So if a rib can be taken, see, this is one of the challenges that people die in their sleep. God doesn't kill people in their sleep. They don't have strokes in their sleep. That's not God, especially if you're functioning from a place of being godly. So you have people, pastors, that say these negative dreams come from God. How? How is it that you're sleeping and incubus and succubus come in your dream? And that comes from God. So you have spirits that are holding you down to where you can't get up or come out of the dream unless you call Jesus. Yep. And you think that that would come from God? It doesn't come, because God is not going to allow a spirit to come sleep with you while you're in the dream, because he's about covenant. Yes, he's not going to allow somebody that carries a familiar spirit, because the dreams that come have a familiar spirit. Yep. And these familiar spirits come in the form of it being an ex or somebody you know. So God ain't going to allow your ex to come and sleep with you in the dream and give you the dream to say you need to go ahead and get freaky with your ex. Exactly. No, it's not. He's not going to allow that to happen, because God is all about covenant. So when these people show up in your dream, these dreams doesn't come from God. And when they show up, they come up to show and watch it, please, to this. And I'm gonna teach some people some stuff that you have been. Most people that when these dreams come, they've been celibate, right? They're celibate. Some of them are single, and when they're single, the enemy understands the season that God is finna bring their spouse. So what he does, he waits until they are asleep. Come into their house, invade them. Now, please hear me. Just stay with me, okay? Please hear me. When you rape someone, you do something without their consent. So in the dream realm, what happens is the same thing that happened to Dana. She was raped. And by her being raped, that became her husband. So the real husband, the physical husband, is being prolonged because the spirit came in the dream to evade, to make sure that the marriage wouldn't take place, because in the spirit realm, this is how stuff is created. This is how stuff is established. So when they come because they need some type of physical evidence that now you're my spouse, now you're my husband, now you're my wife. So this is why some people, if you get married, in our natural laws, it's polygamy if you have two spouses. So in the spirit realm, it's the same way. You're committing spiritual polygamy. So even if you get a natural spouse, that marriage will never last because of the connection that took place in the dream realm.
I'm gonna hop around, but we're gonna come back there too, Apostle. I want to talk about, of course, we're still talking about the dream room, but I want to talk about how it works in the dream room, because the Bible tells us in Psalms 91, it talks about the deadly pestilence that walketh in darkness. And a lot of times you can go to sleep and you can be fine, then you can wake up with a headache, or you can go to sleep and then you wake up and then you're congested. And it's like something that's transpired or taking place while you were sleeping. And the Bible talks about these deadly pestilences, but not just that. Also, it's a lot that's coming out at one time. I also, not just to express that, but I also want you to express how it works with your reception as to what you see. And I want to go into the canceling our dreams, and I know this can go longer than what, and how that works on as far as how you receive different things from the spirit realm or the dream realm.
So I'm going to use my life as an example, okay? How you can receive things spiritually, right? And this probably took place, I don't know, 30 years ago almost. Yeah, at least 25, 30 years ago. I can remember God came to me in a dream, right? I can remember he came to me in a dream. How my calling was defined was in a dream. And I'll never forget, I was laying in my closet. I fell asleep reading my Bible, right? All of a sudden, I fell asleep. And I hear God's voice and I see a hand. And not only do I hear his voice and see his hand, but I see wind. Wind was a representation of the Holy Spirit. I didn't know it then. I can only equate it to a helicopter. How a helicopter is about to land and the grass sway. That's how much wind I felt. I felt it in a dream. I felt it. It was greater than my reality. My dream was. And most dreams are so vivid. It almost feels like it's reality. But the dream realm is you're more sensitive than the natural realm in the dream realm. And God came to me, I'll never forget what he said. He said, now he touched my lips, touched my mouth, and said, I have put my words in your mouth. And from that day forward, the utterance of me speaking, the utterance of me having this prophetic utterance, me speaking in authority, me speaking in power, that every time that I would say something, he would take my words away and give me his. So when I would say something, but all that would take place, my ministry started in my dream. Everything was given to me in the dream. And when I woke up, I was so blown away. He allowed me to maintain the memory that I had to function in it. And from that day to this day, I still function in what he gave me in a dream.
Speaking from that place and talking about that, we talk about you expressing the reception of it. So when it comes to dreams that are, how do you know the difference between a warning dream, dreams that are coming to give you instructions, dreams that the enemy is trying to infiltrate or trying to do something or sow a seed? How is that difference? How does that differentiation come?
Well, what God normally does in the dream to give people warnings, okay? I'll talk about Pharaoh's dream with Joseph, right? I'll talk about that dream. Now, Pharaoh did not have the interpretation of that dream. And even though God was giving Pharaoh a warning, but God had to communicate to Pharaoh based on how he understood. So Pharaoh understood things coming out of the water, right? Because they always went to the water. When you look at Moses' life, God told him to go to the water. So anything that would come out of the water would captivate Pharaoh's attention. And God was trying to captivate Pharaoh's attention by using what he was familiar with. So the oxen or the cattle would come out of the water, right? 7 eel calves, fatted calves, they would come out of the water. but he didn't have the interpretation. In that dream, he would see 7 lean calves, 7 fatted calves, and the lean calves would eat up the fatted calves, but the lean calves' shape would not change. And God was trying to convey to him that 7 years of plenty was coming and 7 years of famine was coming, right? He was trying to convey to him, but it took somebody who could interpret the dreams. Please hear me. And I'm saying, it took someone that had the ability to interpret the dream. That famine was coming. It was a warning from God to Pharaoh. Please hear me. Why would God warn Pharaoh? Watch it. Why? What was the significance, and why would God do that? Why would he warn when it looks like an enemy to Israel? Why would he give Pharaoh a dream in Egypt? Tell you why. Because Joseph would be in Egypt. Joseph and his family would eventually come. So God was warning him that you have a farmer and an interpreter in your midst. The land is going to respond to him. Yes, he'll interpret your dream. Yes, so God would give him a dream only to warn him that nobody could stop the famine, but the warning was there. Yes, you can't stop it. I'm just giving you preparation and steps and instructions to prepare for what's coming. Yes, and that's what I'm in reference to. So when God comes, that's just the warning. He gives warning in dreams. In Genesis chapter 20, he would give King Abimelech a warning. When King Abimelech took Sarah, Abraham's wife, God would come to him in a dream and said, hey, I'm going to explain this to you. This is a warning now. It's up to you if you adhere to the warning that's in his dream. He said, if you now don't heed to my warning, you and your people are dead men. God had prohibited anybody in that country from having children because they took Sarah. And that has the child. That's just with warnings. God gives warnings. That's why I say warning comes before destruction. And God will give dreams as warnings. But I think the challenge with most people, that some people have nightmares. You can't associate a nightmare or night terror with God, because God doesn't send terror. He doesn't send things to scare people or disrupt people. He doesn't send it. He doesn't. Okay, so let me say this. Even with the dream with Gideon, that Gideon, God would give his enemies a dream just with a doggone a bale of hay. How do you get destruction from that? Bread. And he would say, this is nothing more than the sword of Gideon. He would have the interpretation. But God would allow them to see that this is a warning. He doesn't send terror. Terror comes from the enemy. So when you have a nightmare, where do you think it come from? It came exactly from the enemy. So I'm going. It's so much that I want to say. I'm going to say this: how nightmares and terror come, succubus. How these dreams and these spirits come in dreams, right? That most people don't know. When terror comes, what movie have you watched? What horror movie have you watched in order for this to take place? Right? What movie did you watch? That night terror will now come. The same way in Psalms 91. Yep. Right? It talks about terror that comes by night. Yep. Right? Terror, nightmares. Most people open doors. So spirits, they wait until they sleep to initiate or allow them to know that they were here because of the contact, because you allow doors to open. Once those doors open, they got free reign to come into your natural realm when you come into their spiritual realm, because the movie was spiritual. The same thing if you just hooked on pornography. The same thing if you lusting after a person. I guarantee you the spirit that is behind the person, that lust, they're going to show up in your dream. And most people don't have any idea or consciousness or awareness that if you're doing this stuff, you're going to open a door. And once that door opens, you've invited them into your dream realm.
So it's the introduction. Just watching it and just partaking in it, that's the introduction. That's
It looked innocent. It looked like there's nothing behind it. But the second you go to sleep, you've opened a door in your house, you've opened a door in your spiritual house and your natural house, that now you've sent them an invitation that they can come.
This is an overload, but it's a good overload, and I thank God for it. Just because of everything that you're releasing right now is really, of course, the fight. I'm going to say the fight is showing about the intensity of what tonight is about. But in reference to expressing and talking about this dream room, there's different dimensions, there's different facets, and you can come into different agreements in the dream room. Absolutely. So let's say, going back to I don't want to just stay at the place of infirmity, but just going in and everywhere and making covenants and dreams and different things like that. I want to talk about whenever the manifestation of the dream comes into fruition. So let's say, I want to use Martin Luther King for prime example. He started a infamous quote, and he said, I had a dream. And we make jokes about it and we talk about it, but it was literally everything that was to come, and he released everything that was withheld, what was given or revealed in that dream. Sorry. But I want you to express this to our listening viewers, the depths and how it's important, how important it is for what you agree to and what you don't agree to when it comes into dreams. And even like the different ways that the enemy can use a familiar face to bring you into a covenant that God never designed for you to come into when it comes to these dreams.
Well, let's talk about Martin Luther King for a second. You mentioned that, and I think people hear it and only use it as a slogan. It's only become a slogan now in the body of Christ. Well, Martin Luther King, he had a dream, And the thing that I love about his dream, because everything he expressed in the dream, that he experienced in the dream, he dies in real life, but the enemy couldn't stop the fulfillment of the dream. He had to release what God gave him in the dream. And when he vocalized what he saw in the dream, the enemy knew he couldn't stop it. All right, please hear me. So the enemy would kill him so he wouldn't have another dream. Because watch this, we are now benefiting from the dream that Martin Luther King had. He dies, but the fulfillment of the dream, we live it now. That's the reality of it. We are living and functioning in the dream. When Joseph had a dream, Joseph said, watch this, he would make a statement, I seen your sheaves bow down to me. That was the first dream. That was the first dream. I want to hear this. Because remember, sheaves represent wheat. If sheaves represent wheat, his brothers wasn't wheat yet. So they wanted to kill him. I'm telling you, but what's so significant? Boy, when God protects you and you protect your dream. Oh, when God protects you because of your dream, because your dream has to come into reality when God gives you a dream. God will show him the end of that dream so he couldn't die. So even though death was at his door, God had to prick their heart in order to change them. They wanted to kill him and say, let's see what happens now because of his dream. People, if you are not careful and you tell people your dream, you give the enemy access where the next move of God is. Yes, Joseph, his name means God will add, right? If his name means God will add, well, God had added to him in a dream. And what the enemy was trying to do, he now was trying to calculate the time. And he would find what the next move of God was, all because Joseph revealed his dream. Hear what I'm saying? So they attempted to kill him, would throw him in the pit, and would sell him out to the Midianites. And the Midianites had to take him out of the pit, and they brought him into Egypt, all because of one dream. They didn't know that because of that dream, like Martin Luther King had a dream, but Joseph could not die until the fulfillment of the dream would come to pass. The second dream that he would have, he said, I saw the sun and the moon and the stars, and they all bowed down to me. Not realizing, and this is what I'm saying, his brothers were so intimidated by him. I'm going to show you something. Please hear me. Joseph was not the only one who had a gift. His brothers had a gift, even though they didn't have a dream, but they could interpret the dream that Joseph had. They could interpret the dreams that Joseph had. They say, shall you have dominion over us? So they could interpret that Joseph would have dominion, and they would have to bow down to him in the dream. They knew then because of their gift. They were gifted, but never had dreams. God would never give any of them any type of dreams. He would only give it to Joseph because the dream realm was the spirit realm until they became wheat. Yes, and ultimately, as with Martin Luther King, that Joseph could not die, neither could they until they became sheaves, until they bowed, until they repented. This is happening to us because what we did to our younger brother Joseph. They would repent and they would bow down, and the fulfillment of Joseph's dream would now come into reality. Please hear me. And even though Joseph may not have understood his dream entirely, but as he developed, God would have him now to interpret dreams. Yes. So if he was a dreamer, is what his brother said. So God would now bring him into the reality of other people's dreams, the baker and the butler. He would bring them into the reality, and whatever he saw in the dream would become a reality. Yes. So the butler, he would see him being restored. But the baker himself, he would see crows coming against his head with bread. And what they both saw in the dream became both of their reality because of what would take place in the dream.
I wanna talk about that as well, because do you believe it's because of who hands it goes into is the reality of what comes from that dream? You spoke about it a little bit early on as expressing as you were, but you spoke about it again. You have to be careful about who you tell your dreams to. So let's say for prime example, I have a dream and I tell you my dream. Now, of course, you're a man of God, you're upright. So you're going to express what the true interpretation is. But let's say I tell my dream to someone else that is not a man of God, that's on the other side in the kingdom of darkness, and they twist the dream, and I believe the dream, and then that comes into fruition. How does that work?
I think this is it, because we look for interpretations, we look for wisdom, we look for answers. And I think that we are looking for people and answers from people that can't give us answers, but they can give us that cancer. Yes. So people can interpret your dreams to kill you. And this is what I'm saying. Some dreams you have when you go to the wrong person who don't have an interpretation. Because you would have never figured out this dream that Joseph would have, Pharaoh would have, and Joseph would have to interpret it. How do you know that a famine was coming, a 7-year famine? It would take somebody who carried the Spirit of God. As a matter of fact, Pharaoh said, who else can we put in this place or this position? Nobody but Joseph, because he carried the Spirit of God. And if you're going to bring your dream to somebody, you have to bring your dreams to somebody who can interpret that carries the Spirit of God. And exactly. It's like with Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar got ready to kill everyone. Even the wise men, everyone. And Daniel said, wait a minute, give us a moment. Let us pray. And I'm saying this because they would pray for the interpretation. They would pray for the interpretation, and Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they received the answer, salvation came through their interpretation. And I'm saying that salvation would come. Salvation came because Daniel told the eunuch, don't kill him. Because they told Pharaoh, Nebuchadnezzar, the only person that can interpret your dreams is the gods. And God would leave a vessel in the earth who carried the Spirit of God by the name of Daniel to interpret the dream. Oof. Oof. Oof.
We're talking about the interpretation. You mentioned prayer. Mm-hmm. Can anybody pray in order to interpret a dream, or does it have to be one person that's that designated person?
It doesn't have to be a designated person. It doesn't. You can pray if you have a relationship. if you have and I think the challenge that we have, the reason why we can't relate is because people don't have a relationship. So when a dream comes, it could be your demise. And please hear me. Most people die based on the dream that they receive because they don't know how to wake up and cancel it. And I'm going to give you an example. This famous rapper that everyone knows. Well, at one point or another, they knew him. Some don't. You know, some of these little millennials. Yeah. His name was Tupac Shakur, right? And Tupac, all throughout his music, he would say, I had a dream, and in that dream, he was dying by a drive-by. And it's so crazy that he would have dreams but didn't know how to cancel it, but he would always see himself dying and write songs after the dreams that he would experience. How long would they mourn me? He would give interpretations and give expressions, and he himself would die the same way that he had a dream because he didn't know how to cancel it. Yes, and had a relationship with God according to what he knew about God. Because Evander Holyfield said when him and Mike Tyson would fight the first time, he would express that about it. And he missed his opportunity. And his dream now became a reality because he didn't know how to cancel it. Because of his dream, he would die.
How did you, I'm not going to ask you how because I know it was the Spirit of the Lord, but when did you get the revelation about canceling out dreams? Because that's not something that we just born with or we're taught. Like, hey, whenever you have a nightmare, you cancel it out. It's normally whenever a child has a nightmare, you run to your parents, and your parents, in some cases, they'll pray, but nobody really knows, let me cancel this out. And how do you know when it's canceled after you do so?
Okay, so, I'll say this, that most nightmares, when they show up and when they happen, or you see some tragic event, if you don't want that event to take place, then automatically, and this is when I learned when God gave me the instruction, and I'll give you an example, okay? Give you an example. I was in the house, and God woke me up at 2 o'clock in the morning in a dream, and didn't know that cancer had hit my body. And God said, get up. He woke me up out of my sleep and say, rebuke cancer. Oh, shoot. Didn't know that the enemy had sold cancer while I was asleep. And God would wake me up out of my sleep and say, rebuke it. Commanded it leave your body. And in the process of everything taking place, I felt something like something left my shirt, like something pulls your shirt. I felt something leave my body because the enemy came in and sowed tares among the wheat. So every dream that I have that doesn't come from God, it gives me the inclination and the wisdom that I now have that if you see yourself in a car accident, if you allow that dream to persist, then the car accident will eventually happen. I had to get up and rebuke the dream, rebuke the spirit of cancer. And when it left my body, I said, this is what happens in dreams. This is how people wake up with sicknesses. This is how people end up with AIDS. This is how people end up with cancer. This is how people end up with brain disorders. This is how people end up with heart disorders because things came to them in a dream, and when they woke up, they thought it was a dream and didn't realize that now it was going to become your reality because you didn't do anything. You allowed it to stay there and not cancel it in the dream. And canceling it is simple. Anything that you don't want, what are you going to say? You don't want it. If you see death happens in the dream, what are you going to eventually say? Yeah. I cancel out every spirit of death. I shall not die, but I shall live and declare the works of the Lord. That's canceling out death. Sicknesses. He was wounded for my transgressions, bruised for my iniquities, and the chastisement of my people, and by his stripes I'm healed. So any sickness or disease that will try to come to me in my dream, I cancel it out now. By his stripes I'm healed from any disease. Cancer, leave. Diabetes, leave. Cardiac arrest, leave. Heart tumors, leave. Anything. You cancel out everything that's negatively in your life that you happens in the dream.
Bring it back, Holy Spirit. Because right now you're releasing so much and you're giving the people of God so much, especially those that are tuning in. But I wanna talk about, it's gonna come back. In Jesus' name, it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. We're talking about the dream realm and how it works in the dream realm and how different things function and operate in the dream realm. It's bringing me to prayer, and I know it's not, tonight's topic is not about prayer, but it's important. Okay, thank you, Holy Spirit. So when it comes to us being unctioned or woken up in the middle of the night, now this is a twofold situation, because when it came down to David and Bathsheba, when he was awakened or when he got up at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. I want you to express both sides or the twofold to that type of situation, because a lot of times we can get up and be like, okay, it's time for me to go to the bathroom, or I got up in the middle of the night, and not understanding that was the Holy Spirit trying to unction you to pray before something takes place or happens in your life or within the earth. And then also sometimes it can be a tactic of the enemy to try to get you to do something that's not God's will.
Yeah, one of the first things you said that sometimes we wake up and say, well, you have to go use the bathroom. Yeah. Like, okay. So you wake up thinking that you used up the bathroom. God, like, no. He woke you up not for you to go back to sleep. Now, this is the challenge that I have with some people, because I've heard many people say this. God woke you up to pray because the enemy was getting ready to sow things in your life. So he woke you up. But what we do, we go and pee and said, I'm going back to sleep. And not realizing the enemy was waiting, prowling, waiting. When the Bible says Satan is as a roaring lion, looking who he may devour, but he can only devour you when you're asleep. So he's waiting, anticipating to bring you into a state where you're conscious but you're unconscious, so he can sow things to tear things up in the dream, to bring things into it. And most people don't, and I'm going to say this, some people can have a good dream. Let's say you have a good dream, right? You wake up out of the dream, and guess what your first inclination is going to be? If it's good, you're going to lay back down. Watch it. I'm going to show you. And watch, you're going to go into the same place where you was, because you're trying to go back into that dimension and get the goodness or whatever you was feeling. And watch, you're going to, that's normally what, I'm going to go back to sleep. Oh, this was too, you're going to go back to sleep. Watch it. You're going to go back to sleep. And you're going to do everything within your power to try to reach the place that brought you fulfillment in that dream. Whether it's good or it's good bad, you're going to try to find a place to lay back down, to enter back into that dimension or that realm where you were being satisfied or pleased. Yep, that's true. And that's what normally takes place when it comes to these dreams. And most of us, we're not conscious of it. But the enemy doesn't always come aggressive. He can come subtle. That's true. He can come with pleasure. He can come giving you money. He can come, and what I'm saying, if you're not conscious or aware of it, when you wake up, you'll be destroyed by a dream. I'm telling you this stuff, and many people have no idea that how significant your sleep and your dream realm is. How Abraham will receive his children. In Genesis chapter 15, it would be through a dream. God said that your descendants would be in the land that is not theirs. They would be there for 400 years. But it would all take place in one dream. God said your descendants. Everything was captured in that dimension, in that realm. But it would all start with one dream. And how God communicates with us is through dreams. And I believe that destruction comes in dreams. Like many people say, well, they died in their sleep. Watch this. And I'm saying this because there's many times, so I'm going to say this. I had a dream when I was a kid. And this dream would always be repetitive. Always. I used to always have a dream in 3 dogs with red eyes. They would chase me. and they would chase me off a cliff, and I can find myself falling, feel myself in the dream. And I would see the point of a mountain, and right before my body would go to the point of a mountain, God would wake me up. Now, I didn't understand at this time what the 3 dogs represented. They were after my bloodline. Yes, I didn't understand until my father, in his elderly age, before he would pass, he would have dreams. And the same dogs that chased me as a child were chasing him as an adult. He barricaded himself inside of his house. And when they broke through the door, they asked him, "Why did you barricade yourself in?" He said, "Because I was dreaming, and 3 dogs with red eyes were chasing me." I did not know that they were after our bloodline. They were trying to destroy us, but they were using dreams.
Can I get, we're talking, it's different dimensions of this, because you go from talking about different infirmities to even talking about food and covenants made through eating food. Because I've had dreams to where I would eat something in a dream and I would actually regurgitate it back up. Like it was in particular, I had a dream, if I may share, I had a dream that I ate a strawberry piece of cake, right? It was so good going down, but I actually regurgitated. It came back up. And I remember asking someone, and I probably, at the time I was very much so premature in, my learning and the knowledge that I had about, what takes place in a dream. And I asked someone about what that meant, like what the interpretation was, but their whole interpretation was wrong, completely wrong, because I didn't understand. I would later on understand about the evil gourds and different things like that. So it wasn't that I was going to have a stomach ache or something like that, but it's something that I partook of, or a covenant that I partook of that I probably should never have partaken of. And then of course the unclean hands. So you have that, but not just that. Talk about, because I don't know, I've expressed this to you, we talked about this before, about like different bites and stuff taking place in the dream. Like if you get bitten by a dog, or if you get bit by a serpent, what do these different things mean for those that are out there and they're probably watching and they have dreams? Because sometimes you don't want to express what's taking place in your dream due to you not being able to understand it, or just from embarrassment or shame, or just not knowing what it means. But express what those different things mean whenever you have a dream. And let's start off with the animals and the bites and dreams. What does that mean?
So a dog itself, if you find dogs chasing you, I know mine was bloodline, but it was also perversion. My father was perverted because he slept with a lot of women. He opened the door to that. So if a dog bites you in a dream, see, now if I took you the scriptures in the book of Revelation, it said dogs don't make it into heaven. These are not natural dogs, but these dogs God considered to be functioning from a place of witchcraft. Not man's best friend, not those. But if a dog bites you in a dream, it's a sign that the spirit of perversion is there. Yes, and now you have to deal with perversion because dogs are coming. And some, not only is it perverted, but some are hellhounds. Yeah, hell release hounds in the dream. It's a sign that hell is after you. And I'm going to tell you about serpent bites, right? If you think about black mambas, you think about king cobras, rattlesnakes. If they bite you and they release venom into your system to discombobulate your entire system to where you can't even function, you can't even move. If you think about Pharaoh, then what Pharaoh had on his head, what he wore as a crown, was a king cobra. It was a serpent ready to strike. How, when serpents come to bite, they come for deception. They come to deceive. They come to distort the truth. Yes. So when you look in the book of Genesis, Adam and Eve, the truth was distorted. Yes, and they were bitten. Even when the children of Israel complained, they got bit on the heel. The heel represents authority. Yes, it represents what Jesus crushes, the head of the serpent. It bit them on the heel. There was a sign that you are losing your authority. And when the serpent bites, he comes to deceive you, discombobulates you, confuse you, distorts the truth about you, but he comes to take your authority. Please hear me. In Job chapter 20 and verse 15, it makes a statement. He said that he has swallowed down riches, yes, in his belly, but he shall vomit them back up. When you find a python, anaconda, or boa constrictor, they swallow their prey. Yes, and most people, when the serpent show up in the dream, he's trying to swallow their destiny, swallow their purpose, swallow their life. He's trying to swallow their calling, swallow their anointing. He looks to swallow. Yes, and most people have no idea that if you're eating in a dream, these are signs of satanic covenants that they're feeding you.
It's a very interesting topic, to say the least. It really is, because I think a lot of times we take it so lightly because you think about bubble gum. Okay, I got a question. When it comes to those that don't dream, is there any type of danger in not dreaming at all? And is it possible for someone not to be able to dream at all?
So I'm going to say this. I'm going to go back to what we talked about in the book of Joel. Why would God reestablish visions and dreams? What was so significant to where they lost them? So if God gives dreams, it's an expression of what heaven desires for a person's reality. So if you take that away, then how could God give an expression, and how could you excel and increase? Because we see in Genesis chapter 28, in order for God to talk to Joseph, in order for God to talk to Jacob, how could angels ascend and descend? God had to allow him to get familiar with that ram. Yes, angels carry God's presence. Ladders is always a sign of elevation. And God is over the top of the ladder that reach heaven. In order for Jacob to come into who God called him to be, he had to allow him to experience angels and himself, and that ladder that angels would ascend and descend. A portal had to be open in order for Jacob to now later become Israel. And God would protect him and say, if you come to this land, he said, I'll give you. Jacob said, I'll give you 10% of everything that I have. And God told him, if you come back to this land, I'll protect you. I'm going to multiply you. But God talked about this in a dream. The covenant was established all in a dream. And he got to experience angels from this day forth. And when you look at Joseph's life, I want to show you something. What would come out of a dream? In Genesis chapter 32, before Jacob could wrestle with a man, he would talk to angels. But he would experience those angels in Genesis chapter 28. Those angels he would get familiar with because he was familiar with them in a dream. When he woke up, he said, the Lord was in this place and I knew it not. This is a dreadful place. The Lord was in this place and I knew it not. He didn't know, but in the reality that God was speaking to him and talking to him in a dream, he was securing his destiny through a dream.
I asked you this question. Because I may mention earlier, not on the broadcast, but a little bit earlier, I call it the opening of the sinus, making you fully aware. What is that? How do we get past that clogging or that spiritual congestion that will prohibit you from actually being able to see what's taking place in the spirit realm, so that you can become more familiar with it, so that you can actually start to function and operate as it was with Jacob?
I think that one of the first things that we have to acknowledge is that in Matthew chapter 7 and verse 7, right? And it starts off with ask, seek, knock. Ask and it shall be given. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be open. For everyone that asketh shall receive. For he that seeketh shall knock it. So it starts off with when you have a dream and you have to pray. This prayer you have to pray. One of these prayers you can pray. Lord, before you even go to sleep, let nothing be sown or stolen in my dream. and let me not forget what took place in the dream. If you can be consistent with praying this prayer. Okay. Lord, let nothing be sown or stolen or me forget what took place in my dream. And when you can pray that prayer consistently before you go to sleep, not when you wake up, because if you wake up, it's too late. You have to pray this before you go to sleep and remember every detail. I'm going to give you another dream. I remember my wife wanted to go to Colorado, right? She wanted to go to the Rockies. And I said, honey, you better ask God, can you go to the Colorado? Can we go to Colorado? I mean, because we got property there. Just because you have property doesn't mean you have permission. Oof, oof. I said, okay. She said, I'm going to pray. She went to sleep. And by her going to sleep, oh, Lord, thank you, Jesus. By her going to sleep, God revealed to her what was waiting on us at Colorado. Because we were at the property. And in the property, the floor opened. And spirits were grabbing people and grabbing souls, snatching people when the floor opened. And every deity that was in Colorado was looking for us to try to find us. But God will reveal to her in a dream. See, and I want to say this, okay? This is when you know that you're protected, right? When God protects you, right? So when you asked the question earlier, how do you know if God gave you the dream of the enemy? Right? Yes, sir. The Bible says God gives his beloved sweet rest. Right?
That's true.
So if it's sweet, then there can't be no terror. There can't be no interference, no bitterness. There can't be any strife in the dream because God gives his beloved. The rest or the sleep has to be sweet, right? Yes, sir. But there's a difference between sleep and slumber. So the enemy puts you in this catatonic state to where you go into slumber so he can attack you through slumber. Yes.
Express what slumber, because I think sometimes we be like a little sleep, a little slumber. Like it's just something like casual. Express the like what's the difference between sleep and slumber?
Sleep is when God can give you rest. Where you can program time. You know what? It's 9:15. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to give me some sleep. But slumber comes. I'm going to show you when slumber comes. Slumber comes when there's assignments or when you make agreements or you make, you say, you make these vows that, you know what, I'm going to do this by 9:20. I'm going to finish this work. And all of a sudden, because the enemy understands that if I attack her with slumber, I can attack her in her sleep with slumber. I'm going to bring her into slumber to attack her, so procrastination will come. So if procrastination comes, she'll never fulfill the desire that she made a vow to, and I can sting in her life because slumber came. Some people, the reason why they die when they're driving, not because of sleep, because of slumber came. They all of a sudden, when I was driving through Arkansas, I was going to St. Louis, and I'll never forget, and God revealed to me this deity that's in Arkansas. I'm driving and all of a sudden slumber hits me. I'm like, and no matter what I'm trying to do I'm slapping myself. I roll down the window. I'm doing it. And all of a sudden it came and I could not keep my eyes open. I'm fighting, not sleep. But I'm fighting the spirit of slumber because slumber not only want to kill me, but want to kill the people that's connected to me. It had an agenda, but God destroyed and annihilated that spirit of slumber that tried to bring me into a state of a conscious state of mind to where I was out cold. And many people you think died by the hands or they fell asleep. It was not sleep at all. It was an attack and was slumber. And the enemy destroyed their life by bringing and attacking them with slumber.
Thank you for elaborating on that, because I don't think some people just like, I'm really, really sleepy. Like, I don't know why I'm so sleepy. But it is a difference, and that is an attack of the enemy when that takes place. Okay. We're still talking about the dream realm. I'm trying to see another question. Just to kind of just to kind of bring, again, it's to bring awareness, is to bring forth more clarity and understanding that it's deeper than what we naturally think is way deeper. The surface is way deeper. And it's time for us as a body to start getting down into the depths as to how these things take place, so we can no longer lose or forfeit destinies or have them sabotaged because what we're unaware about. The Bible tells us to not be ignorant of the devices of the enemy, but also it tells us that the people of God perish for the lack of knowledge. So I believe that tonight is just one of those nights to educate, to bring forth information, to give wisdom, and so that we all can gain a clarity so that we're able to move forward. And just to, again, the importance of prayer when it comes to this matter, and knowing how to really function and operate to where what God desires for us to gain from the dream realm, we gain, but also what the enemy's intentions are and what his intent is, that he does not overtake us or consume us or steal from us any longer. So just to touch base on that before the closing of the broadcast tonight, just like the importance and the urgency as to how it takes place or why it takes place.
I'm going to say this. When I was 15 years old, 15, I didn't have any knowledge, any understanding, right? I had a best friend. It was the first time that God would allow me to tap in and see certain things. I saw every event, every tragic moment of this person's life. I saw it. God allowed me to see the gun the person was carrying, but he would never allow me to see his face. But I looked like I knew him in the dream. And every event that would take place, it would happen to the T. When I was 15, I couldn't believe it. I didn't have the knowledge to cancel it. Woof. Yes, at 15, I didn't have the knowledge to cancel it. So he would die based on my ignorance at 15. But watch this. I would have another dream. My best friend would die the exact same way. Every detail, his last words, his lip turning black, him being shot in the side where his kidneys and his livers were blown out. My other friend, L.A., who came from California, was holding him. He was at my other friend's house in the neighborhood who locked him out of the door, who locked him out on purpose. We found out later, yeah. I would see it in detail. It was a setup, but God would show me the details in the dream, but I didn't have the understanding to cancel it. My brother, one of my younger brothers, I'll never forget, we was in the same neighborhood in South Park. I'm still 15. I would have a dream. My brother would use my car. I didn't even have a car then. He would take my car, go to the corner store, and there was a guy in the neighborhood that sold drugs, which I knew. So my brother was selling drugs too. So they got into a fight because my brother was selling drugs for him. So he would take a 22, I'll never forget, I even saw the gun, shoot my brother in his head with a 22, and my brother would die. And I would look up to heaven and tell God, no, this can't happen. Blood was trickling down his head. I said, no, didn't even know. I was looking up to heaven, and I woke up out of the dream, and I told God I don't want this gift. Whatever this is, I didn't know it was a gift. I said, whatever this is, I don't want this gift. Watch it. I said, wait a minute, God. I said, if you allow my brother to live, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Y'all, please hear me. My brother has been in some of the toughest prisons. His car has flipped over 12, 13 times on the freeway and got out with just a scratch. He's been shot at. People have tried to stab him. They tried to kill him. He's still living today. God honored, watch this, what I asked him when I came out of a dream. Right now, today, that's how significant dreams are. That God would give people dreams in order to save even his son's life, Jesus. God would give Joseph a dream to say that they're coming to kill Jesus. Now leave this place and go into Egypt. God would give Joseph a dream. And in order for Joseph to marry Mary, Gabriel had to come to him in a dream and said, "This God will warn you." He had to come to him in a dream in order for him to marry Mary. But to protect Jesus, he would have to come back to him in the same dream. That dreams are so significant. I'm going to say it again, the acronym. Divine revelation expressed among men, that he will have to give you something divine and a revelation behind it to give an expression among men or mankind. Dreams are significant, and every person God would give a dream, the dream would now become a reality. They would function. And watch, the dream meant that God was sealing it. He would seal that dream. He would seal it. How I knew my first wife was leaving, it was in a dream. Yes, God showed me moving in another place and she wasn't there. I woke up out of the dream and I said, "No." And I said, "God, not my will, but let your will be done." But he had showed me relocating without her, but he would show me that in a dream. Yes, and I'm telling people this tonight, that your dreams confirm that heaven is with you. When God gives you a dream, he's solidifying your future. He's solidifying it. That God would preserve Jacob until he became Israel. All because, watch, and God would wait 20 years for a man. Yes, 20 years that Jacob would work for Laban, but God would solidify his life in a dream. God waited 20 years for him to become Israel when he knew he was crooked as Jacob. But because of the encounter that he would have in a dream, he could now talk to angels. He can now communicate to angels because what he experienced in the dream. Abraham wasn't Abraham when he experienced the dream. He was Abram. Yes, he was Abram. So God is showing us that Abram wasn't finished. He needed to become Abraham. So God would have to tell him, "Walk thou before me and be thou perfect," because he wasn't perfect then. He was a sinner. So God waited until he became Abraham, as God would wait for his grandson Jacob before Jacob would become Israel. God waited. God will wait on people, but he will give them revelation and interpretations and dreams of who they would become to solidify their entire life. So when the enemy want to destroy people, he's going to show up in their dreams. You'll see Satan. People will chase you in your dreams. And when you wake up, your heart, the palpitation of your heart, you're like, "Man, the dream was so real." It was. When I really got deep into prayer, I'll never forget the first time I was praying some prayers, and I thought they were powerful at the time. And they were, where I was, based on where I was. And the enemy was trying to locate me. They were shooting cars. I mean, I'm watching them. They couldn't identify me. They couldn't locate me. But they were scattering and shooting everything in the dream because they couldn't find me. God had protected me. I seen deities come to me in my dreams. Dragons come to me in my dreams. They would come because they wanted to destroy me. They wanted to stop me in the dreams. And that is so important when it comes to the reality of dreams. When God wanted to do something in an individual's life, he was showing, "Let me show you. Let me show you your dream." Watch. And this is why you have to be real careful with hypnosis. Hypnosis. Because they throw you in places in dreams. You go into the dream realm, they hypnotize you where you're not conscious of the natural, but you're conscious of the spiritual. Yes. They're unaware of it. Yes. They have no idea, no control. And what the enemy, you're done. They throw you into the dream realm, and that's it. So when your children tell you that they had a bad dream, believe your children and sit and listen to the dream. Because if you listen to the dream, you can find out where the enemy is trying to intervene in their life. And you can counter the assignment of every enemy when your children come to you in your dream. Because the children are the future. They are tomorrow. So they're trying to stop their tomorrow. They're trying to sow seeds in their tomorrow because of dreams.
Listen, I thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I just pray that everything that was released, that you take heed to everything that was said, that you actually put into application and practice. Listen, tonight we have gotten prayers, we have gotten wisdom, we have gotten how to go about these dreams that we have, being able to discern and differentiate where they come from and who they come from, and how to move about in the dream realm in general. So my prayer is that you all will take heed, that your hearts have received everything that's been released. Don't turn a deaf ear when the Spirit of the Lord is speaking, because listen, if I don't know anything, I know that the Lord speaks through this man of God. I know that the Lord speaks on this broadcast. Not to say he doesn't speak on other broadcasts, but he definitely speaks here. So my prayer is that whatever you were seeking, that you have found this day and that you put it into practice. We'll see you guys next week on Merge. We're signing out.